Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. I'm going to call the City Council study session into order. Could we all please stand for the flag salute? And though everyone is here, we'll do a quick roll call for the record. So, Councilman Owen?
Oh, I'm here.
Councilman McGoffin?
Present.
Thank you. Councilwoman Diamond?
Present.
Councilman Burns?
Present.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Present.
Councilman Allen?
Present.
And Councilman Lavaca?
Present.
All right, very good. All right. So I'm going to turn this over to Charlie. It looks like we're going to start with the first quarterly 2023 through 2028 strategic plan update. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Council, good evening. So I've put a number of items in the packet here. Last fall, the council approved 3 strategic goals, and along with the vision and mission, you just sort of reiterated those as a part of our 2023-2028 strategic plan. And so that's the first thing that's in the packet, is just that document. And then the second item, which is really the quarterly update, includes those 3 goals, and then includes a lot of the action items that the departments are working on under those goals. And this is our attempt to keep you up to date on progress we're making on these goals. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of walk you through it and check in with you to see if this is a format and a way of reporting that works for you, and if not, to get some feedback and look at better ways we could do it in the future. So I can just launch into this if the council would like and kind of walk you through it. So the first item is the updating the city's website, making sure we emphasize parks and recreation. That update is planned to be completed by the beginning of May. It's currently underway. So we've seen some drafts on that from Bill, and he's out there in the Zoomverse. So certainly if there are questions on that, he can help us out with that. The second item is working with the Chamber of Commerce to market parks and rec properties. We're doing some emphasis of parks with the website update, but also working on a brochure related to parks and rec with our communications consultant that we should have done in a couple of months. And then we would work with the Chamber on marketing that and distributing that to folks here in town. Developing new partnerships around tourism and other things is the next one. That's a very brief paraphrase of a longer paragraph. And we'll be ready to work with you on that. The council had asked to be involved in that process pretty heavily previously when we talked about some of these action items. So that is our intention. But we want to get through some of the economic development planning process to set some clear direction and context on that. So that's where we are on that item. You will see a lot of these things we hope to have done by April 1st or May 1st. We're running a little bit behind schedule, about a month to 2 months behind schedule on some of these items. Working strategically on our outdoor recreation options to expand them. We have a number of parks projects underway. Memorial, if you haven't been out there, it's really coming along. All the playground equipment's out there. And Olmsted, the first 2 phases are planned this year. And then phase 3, we're working on construction in 24. So that update is there. Those updates are all there to give you a snapshot of where we currently are on those parks projects. And then additional strategic partnerships. The thought was we would get some initial partnerships going and then look at what else we can do. And that's likely to occur later in 2023. So that's the update on that. That one's still out in the future a little bit. Olmsted Memorial, we kind of doubled down on that. We repeated that. So we could probably take that bullet out, but covered that previously. And then we're on target for first aid and CPR classes by the fire department. This is thinking about park safety, more people activating our parks and making sure people are able to do that safely. And then partnering with Skagit County EMS and other agencies on AED registry, and that's on target as well. So that's the first goal. Maybe I'll pause there and see if the council's got questions on those updates, or is this a good reporting mechanism for you? Would be another question I have, because we want to make sure we give you what is helpful in the future. The idea is to do this quarterly, not necessarily in a work session. All depends on how much we want to talk about it.
I like the way that you did it. I think it's a great way to refresh where we had left off last time. So I appreciated this format.
Okay.
looks like that's it.
All right,
Yeah.
I will roll on. Improving the city's economy is the next one, and so this is economic development. There was an economic development focus group. The notes from that will be in the packet for the April 12th meeting that occurred back on March 7th. And from that, we pulled out the items that were action items and categorized those into different topics. And so that's the economic development draft action plan that's been put together. We're going to meet with some stakeholders on that, meaning we're going to meet with some of our economic development partners on that next Thursday to get some feedback and some ideas from them. There were some things on there like provide technical assistance to small businesses in town. And we know some of our partners do that stuff, so we really want to highlight that and make sure that we commit them in writing in our plan if we end up taking it forward and approving it. So that everybody's clear on what the expectations are with those partners and they can fit into what our business community is asking for at this point. So that is planned for April 13th. The next one is to actually develop to adopt the action plan if the council so chooses. And the idea is to bring that to you in May. Your work session on May 3rd would be the target for that initial discussion to begin. And then we go from there, and that's pending the Planning and Business Development Committee of the council and how they're feeling about it and whether or not there's any additional input or process or drafting that they want on that plan. And then from there, we have a lot of infrastructure which supports economic development. So a lot of different projects listed that we're working on. The updates are all there from Mark. And so you can look at those at your leisure, but he keeps you up to date certainly on how those projects are tracking. And we've got a lot going on. Protecting commercially zoned land. John wrote a little bit about this and that there were 2 rezone requests that were with recommendations against them that occurred recently and that protected mixed commercial land. So certainly there's effort underway to make that happen. And then taking delivery of, and this is economic development related to public safety, but taking delivery of new ambulances. We do have 2 ambulances that are still delayed out there from Braun Northwest, and they're still waiting for, I understand, chassis to arrive for those. So that's a pending project with fire, but it's out of our control. And then also we're working on a brush truck replacement, and we're actually assembling a brush truck sort of piece by piece right now. So getting creative with that and looking at having that fully constructed by the end of 2023. So a lot of that work's happening in-house with ordered components that are coming together, and the chief can certainly, and any follow-up questions you may have for department directors, we'll run those down for you, but he can certainly tell you more about that if you'd like to know more about that. Looking at fire engine replacement as well. The order and specs have been submitted for fire engine replacement, so we're waiting for delivery, and we'll just keep you updated on that. And then 2 new police vehicles have also been ordered, and the auto tagging system that was a part of the budget that relates to our body-worn cameras for police, that's fully implemented at this point, and it sounds like it's going well. So that's the second goal that we had from council. Those are the items we're working on that we have built into the 23-24 budget. Questions, thoughts, comments, feedback, anything? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move on to the third one. So the third one related more to growing to the north is the way I would summarize it. There are a lot more words added to this one, but looking at single family growth to the north for the city going forward. And John has written a few paragraphs on this topic. The short answer to this whole section is that we're going into the comprehensive planning process, as you all know, starting this year and then going into 24. And so there are a lot of different steps that are going to occur related to that, including updating the city's zoning and development standards. So he has laid out what the process is for each of these. And rather than, I guess, go into great detail on all of these, I'll summarize it with that. Late in 2023, we're going to be working on the growth targets for the city versus the other communities in the county. So that'll be a really important discussion that'll help us figure out how much growth we need to try to accommodate and plan for. Land capacity analysis will also be going on late in 23 and early into 24. We'll be looking at a buildable lands analysis as well, mid-2024, that looks at how much land is available for development, and it relates to the land capacity analysis. And then we'll be looking at how much land is needed as well, late in 24. And then looking at the housing element as well, late in 24, which relates to this topic. So those are the updates, at least on comprehensive planning and looking at growing to the north, particularly in a single-family type of format. So questions from the council on that? That one's a little harder because it's a little further out. So it just is tying in with the comprehensive planning process. So we're not able to do too much yet, but we'll be doing a whole lot pretty soon. Probably more than any of us want to experience. It comes very quick and very intensely when the comp plan gets fully updated and reviewed. Okay.
Madam Mayor, can I ask him a question?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Councilman
Charlie,
Allen.
when does our free money run out? When do we have to spend all that COVID money by?
Yeah, by the end of 2026, we have to expend all of that funding. And by the end of 2024, we have to have our plan for how we're going to spend all the money. So,
And what have we still got in that fund?
the fund is going down quickly. It's more of a question for Kelly. We're spending a lot of money this year on that fund. So Memorial and Olmsted, for example, is coming directly out of that fund. Those are probably the two biggest expenditure lines that I can think of. We've got money allocated for economic development that we're obviously actively talking about and may start spending a lot more of this year. There are a variety of other things on there. So this is a big year for us to spend a big chunk of that money, and we can certainly get you more of a follow-up, more detail on exactly where we think we'll be at the end of the year.
Didn't we
It'll
buy-
be essentially depleted by the end of this year then.
No, it will not be fully depleted by the end of this year, and it all depends on kind of the rate of spending for certain things. So if we do, for example, and this is a small amount really in the grand $3.5 million, 150,000, but if we're looking at a community development grant program, we don't know what the uptake will be on that. If it all happens quickly, that could all be gone this year, but if it's not all gone quickly, then we may still be working through it, next year or even the year after if that's what the council wants to do. So it'll really just depend on the expenditure and kind of our plan for that.
Okay, thank you.
But we can definitely get you more detail, and I'll follow up on that.
Yeah, that would be good, because I think we also bought radios for the police department.
Up front, yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first thing I think we did.
Yeah, we did. And I know some of that money is allocated, of course, for economic development.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Lavaca.
Charlie, how, with the comprehensive plan and the housing, how much is dependent upon those bills coming through Olympia right now? And will a lot of this actually be put off until into the summer after they solidify what they're doing? And do we know the state of where they're at this point?
John knows better than I. He's been following that really closely for those planning bills. But yeah, we would incorporate anything that we're required to do into our process. We'd be required to do that, and we're not started yet very, very much on this. A lot of this stuff is not even mid 23. It's kind of late 23 into 24. So yeah, we will adjust course as needed.
I think the one that might really impact us might be the ADUs. The one bill where they were talking about being able to put any kind of R5, R7, putting them all into the same group so that we don't have that nice differentiation that we do here. That, I think, was for cities much larger than ourselves. So we didn't fall under that, not yet. But they'll probably come back next year and target smaller cities, which might be us.
I'll ask for a brief update on that as well that we can
Yeah.
provide to you.
Yeah. Okay. Is that everything? I do have one comment, Charlie. So it's something I thought about while you were talking, and that is when we distribute the brochures that we have for the parks and for the city of Sedro-Woolley, that we distribute them through the Cascade Loop. We probably would want to work with Monique on that. The Cascade Loop is promoted by all the chambers in this area and around the loop, and so that way, all around the state of Washington on the loop, there would be brochures for Sedro-Woolley's parks and what we have planned.
Got it.
Yeah.
Noted. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Does anybody have any comments, input?
All right.
Okay. Anything else, Charlie?
No, I think I'll sit down now.
Okay.
Be
So I
available
guess
over.
that's it, hey?
That's it for that. There was one other item on the agenda, which was simply a discussion of anything else strategic the council wants to talk about. So
Okay.
that's up to all of you. Let me know.
Okay.
I'm here to help.
All right, so last item then on the agenda is Charlie stated is a strategic discussion, and I'm just going to open it up for those who may have questions, input, ideas, thoughts.
Madam Mayor, would you mind giving an example of what's being requested with that strategic discussion? Or Charlie, either one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I happen to write that in there. So there was some conversation, I think, Councilmember Lavaca, I think it was at strategic planning. I believe you were there. I can't remember. A lot of committee meetings lately. But there was some discussion just about the council traditionally having, doing some strategic goal setting and potentially wanting some time for that. So, this was the first opportunity to just kind of provide the council an opportunity to connect on that if that's what you'd like to do this evening. My one kind of caution is that we've got a lot of goals and a lot of things in action right now and in progress. And so if the council wanted to do a bunch of new things, we need to have a discussion about priorities and how to kind of reshuffle the deck. So we're trying to be responsive to everything that came up last year. We've taken that stuff, put it in the budget, set time aside to make sure we prioritize it. And my recommendation would be that we not set any new stuff right now, new goals, until maybe early next year. We look at it again and then review and go from there. But that's just my recommendation. But if council's got something that you'd really like us to work on, we're always open to discussion on that.
Yeah, a thought that comes to mind for me, which actually impacts you all, has to do with the for the love of Sedro-Woolley and what might come out of that. In attending that, there may be some ideas or suggestions that you'd like to put forth to the city. You've actually got a really good, I think what's going on here, what Charlie just walked you through, it's a good plan. And certainly there's no, I don't want to use the word shame, but nothing wrong with continuing on with this plan, and maybe even might want to embellish upon some of them, I don't know, up to you. But certainly look at this, and perhaps we can bring it back. And I do think then also with the April 19th event that we're going to have at the community center, there may be some things that you really want to implement into the strategic plan.
So I have a question then. Are we having a council strategic planning meeting in the near future then, or are you considering this? I'm confused as to what's going on here, because normally it's in April, then there's this city planned event that's going on, but it's not strategic planning, but it involves strategic planning, but it's not required by, I'm very confused by how this whole process is going, and quite honestly, it's very frustrating to me. So I want to be very clear about when are we having a strategic planning meeting again? What is that encompassing?
Yeah, right now, we do not have a strategic planning meeting on our radar. And it's my understanding that it's been done as a special meeting at times in the
Correct.
past, but I believe it's also been done in a workshop in the past, or a work session. So it's really, if the council would like to have that discussion or have that meeting, then that's something we could use direction on.
So what is we have a meeting on the 18th, and then there's another meeting on the 19th. What's the difference? What's going on between the two?
Yeah. So the meeting on the 19th is the big community workshop with Peter Kageyama, and that's more of a brainstorming of ideas by the community of projects that could be completed in Sedro-Woolley for $500 to express their love for the community. And there'll be a list that actually gets generated, and one project will win, but there'll be a bunch of other ones. And typically what happens is some of those other projects will also get completed. And it generates a lot of ideas, and it generates a lot of collaboration amongst folks who typically don't work together. So that's what that is. What the meeting on the 18th is a meeting with Peter, and it's more of a private meeting. Ideally, although if enough council members come, it won't be a private meeting. But it's more of a private meeting to talk about what happens when you get people to collaborate in these ways, and to think about how the city could be a barrier to some of these things happening, and to think about how we can make sure that we are supportive of things happening, but that we are not reacting maybe exactly how we normally would to things happening spontaneously in the community. So it's to prepare us a little bit for what could occur. So both of those are part of the contract we have with Peter, and it's pretty typical that he'll do that he'll have a meeting with all of us and maybe some stakeholders to kind of get us ready for what happens at the workshop and how the workshop carries out, and then what happens in the community afterwards.
So is it still confusing to you, Sarah?
No, I understand. I just was not, I just want to make it very clear that I was not a part of the committee when this was decided to move forward, and my name was on that, and I don't agree with using taxpayers' dollars to bring Peter in to do something like this. Quite honestly, I wasn't impressed last year. And I agree with the grant program. I think that stuff is great. I just don't believe in bringing somebody in to tell us in the community how to think and what to do and how to pull people together, because that's how I interpret it. Especially when the same book is given to everybody and you're, and this is kind of the role we're supposed to fall and do. And so I just want to be very clear in where I stand with that. I think it's great to try to rally the community together, try to do things for our community. I fully support that. I support outside thinking. There's a reason why every single one of us is here. None of us think the same, and I think that that's important, that we can all gather that information, learn from each other, learn from the constituents, and everybody's background is important, but I don't believe that having somebody come in and direct us into how we're supposed to think, feel, and do is important. And I don't believe that cities should run on feeling. That's how I feel on feeling. That's my situation. That's what I feel about it.
I appreciate your candor, I do, and greatly respect your opinion on this. My understanding, and so you've worked with Peter, I haven't, but my understanding, and especially as I was reading through the book, is that it's an opportunity for the community as a whole to determine what is the direction they want to go. And I thought that he just comes in, gives examples, brings the community together, opens up opportunity for us to really start discussing where we want to go, ideas that we may have. That's how I interpreted it, but am I incorrect in how
No, that's correct. It's Peter will come and basically inspire some thoughts and some possibilities, and then people will take it from there and go wherever they go with it in the competition,
Okay.
and then taking it forward.
Yeah.
So it's not prescriptive. He's not coming in. He's got an approach to the workshop, but it's not prescriptive in the sense of what comes out. Every community is going to have a different set of ideas and things that reflect that community.
Which is why I made the comment that perhaps after the 19th, there may be ideas that will be generated. And then the council may want to institute that, put it into your strategic planning. Our intent is to enable and enhance. Certainly, we didn't intend to frustrate or confuse. So our apologies if that has happened. All we are looking to do is try to work with you and work with the community to do what's best as far as moving forward with economic development. Because as Councilman Allen has pointed out, there have been many attempts, and actually Councilman Owen has said this too, there's been many attempts to try to bring the community together, and it just hasn't happened. But I actually was very much on board with this because I don't believe that we should stop trying. I think that we need to continue trying. The money that we're using, it's really relatively very low amount of money compared to what it could cost us. And if it brings about economic development, that's really, it's money well spent. So
How are we intending or assuming that we're going to build economic development by creating an art project?
it's not necessarily an art project as much as it's what does the city want to see happen. So yeah, I mean, I get it. He talks about a lot of art. It generates ideas. It brings the community together. It generates a lot of energy. And that's what we're hoping to do. Yeah.
I would just add, it's partnering with the community. It's really the community finding ways to
It truly is.
create a
They're to lead
sense-
us.
Yeah,
The community
help-
is to lead us.
help
Yeah.
create a better sense of place in parts of the community, which draws people in, which draws people out. Which
It could be very interesting. In my experiences, true leaders don't necessarily need motivational speakers to lead them to lead and to do what they want to do and to motivate them to move forward with things. And so it should be interesting what the turnout is. We can agree to disagree and on the situation. I mean, that's fine. I just wanted to be very honest about where I'm coming from and how I see it. And and the way that it's being structured and presented to me just doesn't make sense to the Sedro-Woolley that I know. But I'm just one person representing one ward.
Thank you, Sarah.
And Madam Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead.
on the strategic planning, I don't think I'm on that committee, so I don't think we had that discussion. But I believe that if there, and Sarah, I think you're on the strategic committee, a couple of people are, so maybe you guys mentioned like having that second point strategic discussion. So to kind of find out just a little bit about that second point with the agenda is there, that would be cool. With the Love of the City, I went through the book just as, you know, of course, I'm going to give you what I've got, which is my energy to read through that book, which is really kind of long. But a lot of those cities seem to me over 100,000 from what, in fact, he only mentioned one that was less than that, and it was at 10,000. Everything else was 100 to over 1 million, like Chicago, or, you know, I mean, just a lot of different places. Detroit, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. A lot of those cities, and I've been to a lot of them, spent quite a bit of time in a lot of them, and lately they're not doing so well. I'm curious to see how it turns out too. I would encourage the whole council just to go and see what it is, but I would also caution that if you have 20 people or 100 people or whatnot show up, it doesn't necessarily reflect the city, and that's what when I read through it, I was just kind of taking a little bit, some good ideas in there, and it was a little bit drawn, you know, he explains himself over and over, but it was a bit of, you don't want to shape an entire city over the few people who show up for that event, because that can impact, and what that would do is all the other people that live here are saying, well, you're raising a levy for fire department, our utilities are going up, all this is going up, and I'm seeing you guys give out this money and do this. They might not receive it the same way that those 100 people are really enthusiastic about it. So just being cautious there and trying to get the feel of the entire city. And as we live here, we know a lot of people don't voice necessarily at the city council, as we see, or public hearings, as we see, what their true feelings are about the city. So I always found going door to door and getting a good census periodically is helpful, but still, that's a small scope too. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Councilman Lavaca. Yes, Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. I disagree with the Love the City event. I don't think that we need a motivational speaker. I think that we need money, and I don't think that our money should be spent towards a motivational speaker. And I am excited about the grant and the opportunities that will come from that, but I am against using funds for something like this.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Kesty. Councilman Owen?
I kind of agree with Sarah. You know, I had a little bit of that on our retreat, and I don't want any part of it. If that's what you want and the rest of the council wants, that's fine, but I don't want to participate in it. I'm up here to do a job as a councilman, up here to make laws, you know, pass laws, and make sure the city runs on an even keel. I just don't want to get, when they got up and started pasting those little notes on the board, I was ready to walk out of there because I'm too old for that crap. And I just don't agree with it. If a person wants to participate, that's great. But me, as myself, I don't want to. I want to do my job here, what the people expect. I want to represent my people and represent the city and do the best I can. But I'll be honest, I just don't want nothing to do with that program. It should be a volunteer thing. If council wants to do it, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm sorry, it don't appeal to me. And that's just my thought.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Owen. Councilman Burns?
Be honest, I'm open to ideas at this point, just because I want to see more people participate in the community. I'm not sure that this is the ticket by any means, and I agree with Councilman Lavaca that we're not going to get a high enough turnout to be certain that we have a well-rounded perspective from the community, but I hope that we can get enough input from people that we know that we're going in the right direction no matter what we end up doing from this.
Okay.
That's really my hope for anything that we do in this aspect, because I'd love to see more people step up. And as I've heard Councilwoman Diamond bring up the fire department, the lack of people willing to volunteer and help with the community, take that ownership in Sedro-Woolley. I'd love to see that pride come back a little bit stronger. So to me, if we haven't tried it, maybe it's worth a shot. Not saying that any particular one thing is the perfect answer, but I would just love to see us keep trying and not give up on it, because I would love to see that community engagement come up a lot more than it is right now. There's a lot of people who are helping out in our city that are aging, and I'd love to see people in my age range start stepping out and doing something. So it's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you, Councilman Burns. Councilman Allen?
Oh, just kind of come back, a rebut. You've got people that are active in our community, and then you've got activists. And I don't want the activists to quench the active people in our community. So anyway, that's just a thought.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Allen. Let me check with Councilman McGoffin. I just want to check in with you, Councilman McGoffin, to see if you have any comments or thoughts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just appreciate everyone's input. I think it, shows the diverse kind of views that we all have about this. I guess my take on it is, if we try it one time and it's a complete flop, then we know, that's something the community's not supportive of. But I do know, like in my ward at least, I've got, a lot of new neighbors that have moved into Sedro-Woolley that, this is kind of their first exposure to the town. And just talking to them, they're really curious about the city and how they can contribute. And they've got some concerns. So I am planning to, help them come to this event and see if we can maybe generate some ideas. I think being a leader is, it's important and it's, our jobs, but sometimes it does help, I think, to have someone with an outside perspective that's, been around. I did like Council Member Lavaca's point that some of these cities that are mentioned in the book are quite a bit bigger than ours, so it might be hard to compare, results, but I just want to see how it works this one time. And if it's bad, then we know not to try it again. But, if we get one really good idea out of it, I think it would be worth our time too. And as far as the active people or the activists, it's all about voicing your thoughts. Everyone has an opportunity to come talk. And, at the end of the day, if somebody has a good idea and everyone agrees, it's a win for the city. So that's my pick.
All right, thank you, Councilman McGoffin. Councilman Lavaca, did you have another thought?
Yeah, thank you very much. On the strategic discussion part 2, in the meeting that was suggested to have some time, which we actually have a fair amount of time right now to discuss that strategic discussion. Was there anything within that meeting that was particular to discuss? I know that we kind of had a brief overview of the things, and it's not about adding to what's there. I was just curious if there was anything in that meeting to discuss.
No,
Are you
there was
referencing
nothing.
April 19th, the workshop, or the 18th?
I was referencing the meeting that you had. Isn't there a strategic committee,
Yes,
right? There's a
yes.
committee.
Yes,
And
it's a
it-
new committee, and all we did was establish the bounds of what it actually is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
that would be reporting and following up on strategic plans and that sorts of stuff, so that there was some accountability for them.
Okay.
There was no action taken for anything.
Okay. I was just wondering if there was any new ideas or discussions or things discussed in that. Sweet. Thanks.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Well, I have a question. It was on here, but it had gotten taken off about the 2 years. And I didn't know if maybe they had discussed that because I had heard that before. So I don't know if it had gotten taken off, so I don't know why it got taken off or if we wanted to discuss it or.
Yes. So it was on there briefly for, I don't know, 4 hours, something like that, maybe 12 hours. And the work session agendas, I put them together at the direction of the mayor. The mayor asked me to remove that item, so I removed that item. And it was referenced in the minutes from our committee meeting.
Okay. Well, is there anything else regarding the strategic discussion? And the possibility of moving forward? Is there any other thoughts regarding the event that's coming on the 19th that wants to be
I
expressed?
have a question.
Yes.
Were guidelines established as far as how the grant was going to be handled, how that was the parameters that were going to be allocated around it? Because the last discussion I was involved in, the parameters were very broad and not solidified.
Are you talking about the bigger grant program that we're talking about for the council to
Correct.
potentially approve for the community for $5,000 or more?
Or is that a different discussion?
That is a to follow discussion. So the
Okay.
council had asked to wait on that, and so April 26th is what I've got circled on the calendar. There was some feedback from the last discussion, and so my intention is to incorporate that feedback as best I can into like a revised set of documents that then you would start the discussion from on the 26th.
And then the city one on the 19th, is that something that they have to bring the receipts in? You refund the project? How is that being handled?
There's a $500 grant involved in that, a lot smaller, and there will be a contract involved in that. So it'll be it won't be a reimbursement grant specifically, but they will have to come in. They're not getting money at the event. They'll have to come in. They'll have to sign a contract with the city. They will be given a check at that point that they can go cash to do the project, but they'll have to follow through on the project.
And what's the recourse if they
yeah.
don't?
It'll be in the contract. And we haven't written up the contract in detail yet, but we'll have ways to make sure we get the money.
What are the parameters for that $500? Is it just like anything that you want, or?
Whatever wins the competition, yeah. So
Is it like-
it's going to be voted on by the crowd.
Those that are there will determine who's.
So it could be anything from like some sort of yard cleanup project to spoons hanging from a tree to like, to that, or like somebody's business plan. I guess I'm just asking for what it actually entails.
Yeah, I can give you an example from my prior community. What it ended up being there was there's a particular application called Rainworks that you can put on sidewalks. And the issue we had in Sequim was it's sunny Sequim. That was the motto. And everybody would say, I came to Sequim. Why isn't it sunny? It would be like clouds like today. And we got a lot of complaints at the Chamber of Commerce about that. And so a group came up with an idea and this was partly from an idea they saw that Peter had, but an idea to actually paint the sun on sidewalks in Sequim with Rainworks, which is a product that only shows up when it's wet. So the idea was to make sure that the sun always was shining in Sequim. So it could be something like that. And they painted it in several locations. It could be
Interesting.
a pop-up park. It could be a lot of different things, but it has to be able to be done for $500. The idea is not to really involve the city in it. It shouldn't require permits. It should not require really any oversight from us other than making sure the grant gets spent.
And there may not be any ideas submitted, so we don't know till we see, right?
If there are not, I'd be surprised. I think there likely will be a lot, 10, 15 groups and working in tables coming up with stuff. But
So the ideas will be generated at the,
event, and then
Okay.
the ideas will be voted on at the event as well.
Okay.
By the
Okay.
crowd, by the group.
I was
So,
not aware of that. Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Councilman LaValca?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's kind of why last time with that big grant, I was thinking wait till afterwards. And, I do like the idea, but I have reserves against, it's a large amount and we're looking to raise a lot for the fire department and other areas as well. And it's linked to the love of the city. So moving it ahead of that helps decouple that. But I think that whatever it ends up being, it will be like linked to that setup. So the mines in Sedro-Woolley, it was unfortunate that we couldn't get the people together to have an event like this on their own outside of that, even using those ideas based on books or whatnot, but actually bring the speaker. Once we did that, we coupled the two together. So I kind of felt like that was coupled. And then we run into risk with even the committee, if projects are submitted, but the committee doesn't want them, it could be a negative PR representative for the city. So there's some caution that I would entail for that to the council members that I've been considering since considering this whole entire thing as a whole. The grant, I thought, was a really good program. As it got linked up, I saw where things could actually maybe not be as smooth as maybe it's worked in the past for other cities. That book was 10 years old, of course, the climate was different, but also with our economic climate right now. So things to think about as the 26th arises. So.
Yeah, I remember that you made that suggestion because I think what you said was we may find that we want to perhaps even distribute more money for grants depending upon what comes about, or we may want to distribute less. So I thought that was a good suggestion to stop and wait. Think
Yeah.
about it.
And see how it links up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, if there's no other discussion, then I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good night. We are adjourned.